Lost in space, a forbidden encounter. The year is 2251. Humanity has finally achieved interstellar travel, and the first manned mission to Proxima Centauri b, the closest Earth-like exoplanet, is underway. The crew of the starship Avalon, a state-of-the-art exploration vessel, is filled with excitement and anticipation as they approach their destination. Little do they know that they are about to encounter a terrifying creature from the depths of space, a creature that has been lurking in the shadows for millennia, waiting for prey to wander into its domain. As the Avalon approaches Proxima Centauri b, the crew detects a strange signal emanating from the planet's surface. Intrigued, they decide to investigate. Upon landing, they discover an ancient alien ruin, a vast and labyrinthine structure that seems to pulse with an eerie energy. As they venture deeper into the ruins, they are unaware that they are being watched, stalked by a creature of pure nightmare. The crew of the Avalon pressed on, their curiosity fueled by the strange signal emanating from the structure. They stepped lightly, their breath echoing through the ancient halls as they stumbled over discarded machinery. The air was thick with the scent of rust and decay, and their flashlights barely pierced the darkness ahead. That's when they heard it, a faint scratching noise coming from deep within the ruins. They hesitated for a moment, but their desire for discovery overpowered their fear, and they continued on. As they drew closer, the scratching turned to a low growl. Then, suddenly, it stopped. The crew stood frozen, their weapons at the ready. Then it was upon them, a creature of pure nightmare. Its body was a writhing mass of tentacles, its eyes glowing like embers. It lunged at them with blinding speed, its tentacles flailing wildly, and the crew barely had time to dodge out of the way. One of the crew members, a young woman named Alara, stumbled and fell as the creature let out a deafening screech. She scrambled to her feet, turning just in time to see the creature advancing towards her with its tentacles outstretched. Alara's heart raced as she fumbled with her weapon, her fingers shaking in terror. She knew that she had to act fast. She took a deep breath and steadied her aim, firing at the creature with all her might. The blast hit the creature square in the chest, sending it reeling backwards. The crew members cheered as they watched the creature writhing in agony on the ground, its tentacles flailing wildly, but their relief was short-lived. With a sudden burst of energy, the creature lashed out at them once again. The crew members scattered, dodging its tentacles as they tried to find a way out. Alara felt a sense of determination wash over her. She knew that they couldn't let the creature escape and harm anyone else. With her weapon still in hand, she charged towards the creature, her heart pounding in her chest. As she closed in, the creature let out another deafening screech, its tentacles whipping. But Alara was ready. She dodged and weaved between the tentacles, firing her weapon with deadly precision. With every shot, the creature grew weaker, its movements slowing down. Finally, it let out one final pitiful screech before collapsing to the ground, its tentacles going limp. The crew of the Avalon rushed to Alara's side, congratulating her on her bravery. But Alara didn't feel like a hero. She knew that they had stumbled upon something truly terrifying, something that they may never fully understand. As they made their way back to the ship, Alara couldn't shake the feeling that they had just scratched the surface of something much more sinister. And as they lifted off from the planet's surface, her mind wandered to the implications of their discovery. How many more creatures like the one they had just faced were out there, lurking in the dark corners of the universe? What other horrors awaited them as they journeyed deeper into the void? Alara shuddered at the thought, but deep down she knew that there was no turning back. They were explorers after all, and their quest for knowledge would take them to places that few had ever dared to go. As the Avalon hurtled through the depths of space, Alara watched as the stars streaked past her window, each one a reminder of just how small and insignificant humanity truly was. But she also felt a sense of awe, a sense of wonder at the vastness of the universe and the endless possibilities that lay before them. And as she settled into her chair and gazed out at the endless expanse of space, Alara knew that she was exactly where she was meant to be. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months, as the Avalon continued their journey through the void. As they traveled deeper into the unexplored regions of space, They encountered all manner of strange and wondrous things: pulsars that emitted a rainbow of colors, planets with bizarre and alien ecosystems, and stars that glittered like diamonds in the darkness. But they also encountered danger. They battled rogue asteroids and avoided black holes that threatened to swallow them whole. They even encountered a hostile alien race, though they managed to avoid a full-scale conflict. Through it all, Alara and the crew remained steadfast in their mission. They were determined to explore every corner of the universe, to seek out new life and new civilizations, and to boldly go where no one had gone before. But their greatest challenge was yet to come. As they approached a distant star system, they detected a faint signal emanating from one of the planets. Intrigued, they decided to investigate. Upon landing, they discovered a barren wasteland, the only sign of life being a strange alien structure in the distance. As they approached, they couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding, as if something was watching them from the shadows. As they entered the structure, they were immediately greeted by a strange and unsettling feeling. The air was thick and heavy, and their flashlights barely seemed to penetrate the darkness. They stepped lightly, their movements slow and cautious, as if afraid of waking something that lay in wait. Suddenly they heard a faint whisper. It was almost imperceptible, but it was there, echoing through the dark halls of the structure. The crew members looked at each other, their hearts racing with fear and anticipation. Then suddenly they saw it, a figure standing in the shadows. It was tall and imposing, its form shrouded in darkness. For a moment, the crew members stood frozen, their minds unable to comprehend what they were seeing. Then, the figure stepped forward, revealing its face to the crew. It was an alien, unlike any they had ever seen before. Its skin was a sickly pale color, and its eyes glowed with an otherworldly light. The crew members instinctively reached for their weapons, but the alien held up a hand to stop them. It spoke in a language that the crew couldn't understand, but its tone was calm and measured. As the alien spoke, the crew realized that they weren't in danger. In fact, the alien seemed to be trying to communicate with them, to share its knowledge and wisdom. Over the next few days, the crew learned more about the alien civilization, about their technology, their culture, and their history. They were amazed at the sheer scope of the aliens' knowledge, and they couldn't help but feel a sense of awe and wonder at the mysteries of the universe. But as their time with the alien drew to a close, Alara couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. There was something about the alien's calm demeanor that didn't sit right with her. She couldn't quite put her finger on it, but she felt a sense of dread creeping up inside of her. As they prepared to leave the planet, Alara voiced her concerns to the rest of the crew. They listened intently as she laid out her suspicions, and they soon realized that she was right. The aliens' intentions weren't pure. In fact, they were far from it. As the crew scrambled to gather their belongings and make their way back to the ship, they could hear the alien's voice echoing through the halls of the structure, growing louder and more frantic with each passing moment. They knew that they had to move quickly if they wanted to make it out alive. Alara was the last one to leave the structure, her heart pounding in her chest as she made her way towards the exit. She could feel the alien's presence behind her, its hot breath on the back of her neck. She knew that she had to keep moving, to find a way out before it was too late. Just as she reached the door, the alien appeared before her, its eyes glowing with a sinister light. Alara stood her ground, her weapon at the ready, determined to protect herself and her crew. But the alien was too powerful. With a flick of its wrist, it sent Alara flying across the room, her weapon clattering to the ground beside her. She tried to get up, but her body wouldn't respond. She was paralyzed, unable to move as the alien loomed over her. For a moment, Alara thought that this was the end, that she was going to die here, on this desolate planet, at the hands of an alien race she barely understood. But then, something inside of her snapped. A fire ignited in her chest, and she found the strength to fight back. With a rush of adrenaline, Alara reached for her weapon and fired at the alien with all the rage and fury she could muster. The alien stumbled backward, stunned by the sudden attack. It let out a howl of rage, its eyes burning with hatred. But Alara didn't back down. She fired again and again, each shot hitting its mark. Finally, the alien collapsed to the ground, its body convulsing as it let out one final, pitiful shriek. Alara breathed heavily, her heart still racing as she looked down at the fallen alien. She knew that they had narrowly escaped with their lives, but she also knew that there were more dangers out there, waiting in the darkness. As they lifted off from the planet's surface, Alara couldn't help but think about the things they had seen and the horrors they had faced. But she also knew that they had come out stronger because of it. They had faced the unknown and emerged victorious, and as they set course for their next destination, Alara couldn't wait to see what other wonders and terrors awaited them in the depths of the universe. She was ready for anything, armed with the knowledge and experience she had gained from their encounters on this journey. But as the Avalon hurtled through the darkness of space, Alara couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. She couldn't put her finger on it, but she knew that they weren't alone out here. There was a presence lurking just beyond their sensors, watching and waiting. And then, without warning, the ship was hit by a flash of energy. Alara was thrown from her seat, her body slamming against the wall with a sickening thud. She could hear the screams of the other crew members as the ship was rocked by another blast. As they struggled to regain control of the ship, Alara knew that they had to act fast. They were under attack, and whoever was behind it was not going to stop until they were destroyed. Alara scrambled to her feet, her mind racing with possibilities. They had to find a way to fend off the attacker to protect themselves and their ship. As she made her way to the bridge, Alara could hear the sounds of chaos all around her. Crew members were shouting into their communicators, trying to coordinate their efforts. Alarms were blaring, warning of imminent danger. When she finally reached the bridge, Alara saw the source of the attack. It was a massive alien ship, unlike any they had ever seen before. It was black and sleek, with strange glowing markings etched into its hull. Alara knew that they were outmatched. The Avalon was a formidable vessel, but it was no match for the firepower of the alien ship. They had to come up with a plan, and fast. As the crew worked frantically to analyze the alien ship's weapons and defenses, Alara took a deep breath and made her decision. She knew what she had to do. "Get everyone to the escape pods," she shouted over the chaos. "I'll stay behind and take care of this." The crew looked at her in disbelief, but Alara stood her ground. She knew that this was her only chance to save their lives. With a heavy heart, the crew members made their way to the escape pods, leaving Alara alone on the bridge. She steadied herself as the alien ship closed in. Her heart was pounding in her chest, but she didn't falter. She had faced down danger before, and she was ready to do it again. As the ship drew closer, Alara took aim with the Avalon's weapon systems. She fired round after round, her shots hitting their mark. The alien ship returned fire, but Alara was quick to dodge and weave, using the Avalon's superior maneuverability to her advantage. The battle raged on for what felt like an eternity, lasers and projectiles flying back and forth between the two ships. Alara's heart was racing, her mind focused on one thing, and one thing only: survival. Just when it seemed like all was lost, something changed. The alien ship began to falter, its weapon systems malfunctioning. Alara saw her opening and took it, firing one final devastating shot that brought the ship crashing down. As the Avalon emerged victorious, Alara collapsed onto the floor, her body shaking with exhaustion and relief. She had done it. She had saved the crew and the ship from certain doom. But even as she basked in the glow of victory, Alara couldn't help but wonder who had been behind the attack. The alien ship had been unlike any other she had ever seen, and its motives were still a mystery. There was still so much they didn't know about the universe, so much left to explore and discover. Alara closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the universe on her shoulders. She knew that their journey was far from over, that there would be more dangers and mysteries awaiting them. But she was ready for it. She had proven herself capable of facing anything the universe could throw at her. As she opened her eyes, Alara felt a sense of clarity wash over her. She knew that they couldn't let this attack go unanswered. They had to find out who was behind it and stop them from harming anyone else. With a newfound determination, Alara made her way to the communications center. She activated the long-range sensors, scanning the area for any sign of the attacker. It wasn't long before she found them. A small, nondescript ship was lurking just beyond the edge of their sensor range. It was heavily armed, with advanced weapon systems that Alara had never seen before. She knew that this was their target. This was the ship that had attacked them, and they had to take it down. Alara activated the Avalon's weapon systems, targeting the ship with deadly accuracy. The small ship didn't stand a chance against the Avalon's firepower. It exploded in a burst of flame and debris, leaving nothing but wreckage in its wake. Alara breathed a sigh of relief, feeling a weight lifted off her shoulders. They had found the attacker and stopped them. But as she turned to leave the communication center, she caught sight of something on the sensor readouts. There were more ships out there, lurking just beyond the boundaries of their sensors. They were watching and waiting, biding their time until the right moment to strike. Alara's heart sank. They had stopped this attack, but there were more out there, more dangers and threats lurking in the darkness of space. But Alara didn't let fear consume her. Instead, she rallied the crew and set a course for the unknown. They had faced down danger before, and they would do it again. They were explorers, after all, and that meant facing the unknown head-on. As they flew deeper into space, Alara knew that they would encounter more dangers and more mysteries. But she was ready for it. She was armed with the knowledge and experience she had gained from their encounters so far, and she was confident that they could face anything the universe could throw at them. And as the crew prepared for their next mission, Alara couldn't help but feel a thrill of excitement. She was ready for whatever lay ahead, armed with her wits, her courage, and her trusty ship, the Avalon. Together, they would travel the depths of the universe, facing the wonders and terrors that awaited them with eyes wide open and hearts beating strong. For Alara and the crew of the Avalon, there was no turning back. They were explorers, and nothing would stand in their way. Twisted toys. As the teenagers crept towards the abandoned mansion, their breaths created small puffs in the chilly night air. The full moon illuminated the imposing Victorian structure, casting eerie shadows on its decaying walls. They pushed aside overgrown vines and climbed through a broken window to gain access. Inside, they were greeted with musty air and creaking floorboards. The moonlight barely filtered through the dirty windows, but it was enough to make out the creepy details of the interior. Tattered curtains, broken furniture, and cobwebs covering every corner. Undeterred by the spooky atmosphere, the teenagers explored each room with curiosity. But as they made their way up to the attic, they couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. When they opened the door to the attic, they were met with a chilling sight, an army of twisted and demonic toys staring back at them with glowing eyes and sinister smiles. A shiver ran down their spines as they realized that this wasn't just a case of an overactive imagination. These toys were real, and they exuded an evil energy. A loud bang sounded behind them as the door slammed shut, trapping them inside with nowhere to run. The rumors about this house and its dark past were all true. Panic set in as they heard strange noises coming from the shadows. Suddenly, the toys came to life. The dolls started to dance, the stuffed animals growled, and the action figures fought one another. The board games opened, releasing a swarm of spiders that crawled toward the terrified teenagers. One by one, the friends were attacked by the demonic toys. They screamed and tried to fight back, but it was no use. The toys were too powerful. As the last teenager fell to the ground, the toys ceased their attack and returned to their lifeless state. The next morning, the police found the abandoned mansion sealed shut. No one ever entered the mansion again, and the evil energy surrounding the house lingered for many years. Some say that the toys still come to life at night, continuing their mission to trap and attack anyone who dare to enter the cursed mansion. Others claim that the spirits of the teenagers still haunt the house, forever trapped in the attic with the demonic toys. No one knows for sure what happened that night, but one thing is certain: the abandoned mansion on the hill remains a source of fear and mystery for the people of Whispering Willows. However, there was one person in Whispering Willows who wasn't afraid of the mansion. Her name was Lily, and she was a psychic medium who had always been fascinated by the supernatural. She had heard about the mansion's dark history and knew that she had to investigate it for herself. One moonlit night, Lily stood before the mansion's gates, sensing the evil energy emanating from the house. Determined to face it, she pushed open the creaky gates and entered the mansion's grounds. As she approached the mansion, Lily felt the presence of the spirits that lingered there. They were restless and angry, and their voices whispered in the wind. Lily made her way through the abandoned mansion, her senses heightened by the energy surrounding her. She ventured deeper into the house, determined to find the source of its evil. She searched every room, looking for clues and listening for any signs of life. But the house was silent, save for the occasional creak of a floorboard. Finally, she came upon a locked door at the end of a long hallway. Energy pulsated and emanated from behind the door. Lily retrieved her trusty lock-picking tools and began to work on the lock. It took her several minutes, but the lock finally clicked open, freeing the door. The heavy door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit laboratory. Strange machines hummed and whirred in the background, and shelves upon shelves of glass jars, filled with bubbling concoctions, lined the walls. In the center of the room, a massive oak table stood covered in sharp tools of all shapes and sizes. Some were stained with specks of blood. Suddenly, Lily heard a whisper coming from the corner of the room. She turned and saw a figure shrouded in darkness. The figure slowly emerged from the shadows, revealing itself to be a man in a lab coat. His face was twisted and contorted, and his eyes glowed with a demon's light. The man introduced himself as the Mad Toymaker, the creator of the demonic toys that had attacked the teenagers. He explained that he had been experimenting with dark magic, trying to create the perfect toy that would be both beautiful and terrifying. But his experiments had gone wrong, and the toys had gained a life of their own. Lily could sense the Toymaker's energy, like an electric current pulsing through the air. She knew that he was not entirely human. There was a dark and primal force within him, a chaotic mix of man and demon. His powers were beyond anything she had ever encountered, unpredictable and formidable. It was as if he held the strings to a powerful puppet show, controlling everything around them with a flick of his wrist. The Toymaker revealed that he had been waiting for someone like Lily to come along. He needed her help to reverse the curse that he had unwittingly unleashed upon the mansion. Lily was hesitant at first, but she knew that she was the only one who could help the spirits trapped in the mansion. Together, Lily and the Toymaker worked to break the curse that had been placed on the mansion. They spent long hours in the laboratory, poring over ancient texts and casting spells to break the curse. As they worked on the intricate mechanisms of the cursed Toymaker's creations, Lily began to see a different side of him. She noticed how his hands trembled as he carefully placed small gears and springs into place. She saw the furrow of his brow as he concentrated on each delicate detail. At first, she thought his hesitance and caution were due to his mad scientist persona, but as they spent more time together, she realized that he was a lonely and tormented soul, trapped in the mansion for decades, unable to leave and haunted by the spirits he had unwittingly unleashed. Despite their differences, Lily and the Toymaker grew closer as they worked together to break the curse. They shared stories of their pasts, and Lily learned that underneath the eccentricity and obsession with toy-making, he had once been a loving husband and father. After months of hard work, they finally succeeded in breaking the curse. The evil energy dissipated from the mansion, and the trapped spirits were able to move on. Lily said her goodbyes and left feeling a sense of satisfaction and closure. But she couldn't shake off thoughts of the Toymaker from her mind. She worried about him constantly, knowing that he was still haunted by his past. One night, she returned to the mansion searching for him. As she called out his name, she heard a whisper coming from the laboratory. Her heart raced as she made her way towards it, hoping to find him there. Lily crept towards the workshop, her steps barely making a sound on the old, creaky floorboards. She could see the Toymaker through a gap in the door, hunched over his workbench with a furrowed brow, lost in thought. As she entered the room, he turned to face her, and a warm smile spread across his face. Tears glistened in his eyes as he whispered her name, his voice trembling with emotion. She stepped closer and wrapped her arms around him, feeling the weight of his guilt and sadness. "I had to come back," she murmured, "to make sure you were all right." His grip tightened around her, his body shaking with suppressed sobs. "I'll never be okay," he confessed, his voice barely audible. "Not after what I've done." She pulled back slightly and looked into his tear-filled eyes, seeing all the regret and pain etched onto his weathered face. Placing a gentle hand on his shoulder, she said, "There's no use dwelling on the past, but you can use your talents for good now. You've already helped so many trapped spirits in this mansion. Maybe there are others out there who need your help too." He let out a defeated sigh, but then something sparked in his gaze. He nodded resolutely and said, "You're right. I can't change what I've done, but I can make a better future." Side by side, they worked through the night, pouring their creative energy into something beautiful and pure. As the first rays of sunlight filtered through the windows, they stood back and marveled at their masterpiece. The toy maker turned to Lily and took her hand in his. "Thank you," he said sincerely, "for believing in me and helping me find my purpose again." Lily could sense the darkness within him slowly fading away, replaced by a newfound joy. Lily's eyes overflowed with tears and gratitude, her heart swelling with a sense of blessed relief. The toy maker's smile in return was like a beacon of hope, reminding Lily that not only was he her friend, but also a formidable ally in their quest to spread love and positivity across the world. Together, they would face any obstacle that stood in their way. This was just the beginning, and Lily knew that with the toy maker by her side, they were unstoppable. Abandoned depths. The abandoned mineshaft jutted out from the hillside, its entrance a gaping maw covered in twisted vines and shrouded in a thick fog. John and his friends, fueled by adrenaline and teenage curiosity, decided to explore its depths. They brought flashlights, their beams cutting through the darkness as they descended into the shadows. The air grew colder with each step, and an eerie silence enveloped them. Distant drips of water echoed off the walls, and their footsteps thudded against the damp ground. As they delved deeper, John's gut tightened with unease. Shadows seemed to dance just outside of their vision, and a tingle ran down his spine. But his friends were too caught up in their bravado to notice. Then the flashlight beams fell upon something that made their blood run cold. Strange symbols glowed on the rough stone walls, etched with precision and radiating otherworldly energy. Their chatter turned to hushed whispers as they continued deeper, the symbols growing more frequent and complex. A sense of dread settled over the friends as they realized they had stumbled upon something ancient and possibly dangerous. And as they reached a chamber filled with intricate patterns that seemed to writhe and pulsate in the light, they knew they should have never entered this place. When they stepped onto the unstable ground, John and his friends heard a low rumbling beneath their feet. Without warning, the solid ground beneath them crumbled and gave way, sending them tumbling down into a seemingly endless abyss of darkness. The air rushed past their faces as they fell, the only sound coming from their panicked screams echoing off the walls of the cavern. It was as if they were being swallowed by the very earth itself, with no end in sight. The cold, damp air clung to their skin, and the darkness enveloped them, leaving them disoriented and afraid. Time stood still as they continued their descent, unsure of what awaited them at the bottom. They landed hard on the rocky ground of a cavern, with the weight of their bodies crushing against one another. John's flashlight shattered on impact, leaving them in complete darkness. When the group regained their senses and turned on the remaining flashlights, they saw that they were surrounded by piles of human bones and remnants of clothing. The sickening stench of death invaded their senses, assaulting their nostrils and filling their lungs with a putrid, rotting odor. A gruesome scene lay before them, sending shivers down their spines and turning their stomachs with its horrifying reality. Their screams echoed through the cavern, but there was no one to hear them. Then a deafening roar pierced the silence, and it became clear that they were not alone in this underground graveyard. Emerging from the darkness were twisted, inhuman figures with elongated claws that glinted menacingly under the dim light. Their eyes blazed with a crimson fury as they charged toward John and his friends, their hunger for fresh flesh evident in every wild, animalistic movement. John's heart raced as he desperately swung a broken piece of rock, trying to fend off the monstrous creatures that surrounded him. He felt their hot breath on his skin and their sharp claws scraping against his body. In the distance, he heard his friends' screams as they were dragged away one by one into the darkness, leaving only a faint echo behind. Would he be next? John stood his ground, his muscles coiled and ready for whatever might come at him. He was determined not to back down, no matter what obstacles he might face. His primal instincts took over, fueled by an unrelenting desire to survive. He knew the odds were stacked against him, but he was not going down without a fight. Despite his valiant efforts, the creatures overwhelmed him. They clawed and gnashed at his flesh until all that remained in the cavern was a pool of blood and silence. As the darkness devoured him, John's eyes widened in terror as he watched the ancient symbols on the walls glow with a sinister light. The cavern was a doorway into another world, a realm of unfathomable horrors that threatened to consume his very soul. He attempted to scream, but the sound was trapped in his throat, and he could only watch in horror as the secrets of the abandoned mine were revealed before him. The abandoned mine lay silent, but the darkness spoke to John, taunting him as he struggled to stay conscious. He was no match for the sinister force lurking in the deep. As his vision blurred and his body went limp, he realized that this was his demise. The darkness that hides in the shadows had claimed him, making him its latest prey. Campfire Lake. The sun sank behind the rugged peaks surrounding Campfire Lake, casting a warm glow upon its crystal-clear waters. Lily and her friends had set up camp on the shore, building a cozy fire pit out of rocks and collecting branches for roasting sticks. The towering pine trees that encircled their campsite whispered in the gentle breeze, providing a sense of seclusion. As they sat around the crackling fire, their faces illuminated by its dancing flames, the sweet aroma of roasting marshmallows filled the air. They laughed and shared stories, their voices mingling with the distant call of loons resounding across the lake. The scent of wood smoke and fresh pine needles enveloped them, creating a sensory experience unlike any other. As the sun dipped below the horizon, a sharp drop in temperature sent shivers down Lily's spine. She pulled her woolen blanket tighter around her shoulders and moved closer to the fire. Despite the warmth, she couldn't shake off the uneasy feeling that someone or something was lurking in the shadows, watching their every move. A sudden ripple broke the surface as they gazed out at the serene lake. The group's attention was drawn to a mist rising from the water, slowly enveloping them in its chilly embrace. Whispers, like the echo of lost souls, swirled around them. A loud splash shattered the silence of the night, causing them to jump in fear. From the other side of the lake emerged a mysterious figure, her silhouette shrouded in mist and water. She resembled a siren, with long dark hair that floated around her pale face, giving her an ethereal appearance. The depths of her vacant stare seemed to pierce through anyone who dared to meet her gaze, seemingly hiding secrets of the underworld. With each step she took, the water rippled and danced a hypnotic pattern around her, as if she held a mystical power over the waves. Lily and her friends stood transfixed, unable to tear their eyes away from the enchanting creature, who seemed to have emerged from another world. An unsettling mix of fear and fascination captured them, the girls dangerously drawn to the captivating woman. The figure reached out, her arms bony, skeletal branches that beckoned the girls closer. The apparition's chilling touch drifted on the breeze, the sensation of icy fingers trailing along their skin. A raspy whisper slithered from her lips as she spoke of promises to take them down into the murky depths of the lake, where their screams would be swallowed by the water's embrace. The initial awe quickly faded as Lily and her friends were snapped back into reality. They shrieked and scrambled to their feet, eager to escape from the unknown entity that lurked beneath the lake's surface. Without wasting any time, they hastily packed up their belongings. They sprinted back to the comfort and security of civilization, making a solemn promise to never return to Campfire Lake again. Lily emerged from the depths of Campfire Lake, her spirit forever shattered. No amount of therapy or medication erased the haunting whispers that followed her every step, leaving her in a perpetual state of terror. She lived the rest of her days on edge, constantly looking over her shoulder for any sign of the darkness that had touched her at the lake.